Alright, let me spill the tea on the original mad scientist drama, Frankenstein. It's basically where all these playing god tropes you've seen in anime and video games started. So, we've got this dude, Victor Frankenstein, and his life is about to go full Dark Souls boss origin story. Buckle up, this is gonna be wild. Victor grows up in Geneva, Switzerland, where his life is as bougie as a Swiss chocolate ad. His fam is loaded, kind, and all about those wholesome vibes. His parents are mega sweet, like, the kind of sweet you only see in Disney movies, and when they find this poor orphan girl, Elizabeth, they're like, yoink. She's ours now. Victor? He's immediately like, she's the Ian to my Yang. Future wife material. No doubt. Gross? Maybe. But it was 18th century Switzerland, so we're letting it slide. Now, Victor's got the family, he's got the girl, and life is basically Animal Crossing on chill mode. He's vibing with his brothers and Elizabeth, soaking up the picturesque mountain views. But then, plot twist, our boy gets major tunnel vision. He's not like other kids, instead of chasing hobbies like sports or whatever, he's all about books. And not just any books, he's into the spicy ones about magic, alchemy, and ancient pseudoscience. He's reading dusty old texts by Cornelius Agrippa and Paracelsus like they're One Piece mangas with hidden lore drops. His dad's like, that stuff is cap, but Victor? He's like, nah, this is my jam. Fast forward a bit, and Victor is now totally cracked at science. He's got this natural hunger for the secrets of the universe, like he wants the cheat codes for life itself. But tragedy strikes early, his mom dies from scarlet fever after nursing Elizabeth back to health. It's a big oof moment, and Victor's like, welp, guess it's time to go full genius mode in her memory. He heads off to university at Ingolstadt with ambitions bigger than Kaido's ego. Now, this is where the plot gets unhinged. Victor pulls up to Ingolstadt, and it's game on. He meets this Professor M. Kremp, who's basically that snarky NPC who gives you a side quest while dragging you for your poor gear. Kremp's like, why are you wasting time on outdated alchemy nonsense? But then Victor meets Waldman, another professor, who's more like, okay, you're onto something. Let's see how far you can take it. And boy, does Victor take it far. Victor dives into science like it's an Elden Ring speedrun. He's not just studying, he's grinding 24/7, looking for that ultimate build. He's like, what if I could crack the code of life? Like, just bring stuff back to life, NBD. He starts working in secret, raiding graveyards for body parts like he's on some twisted fetch quest. This man is out here stealing limbs and stitching them together like he's crafting a legendary weapon, but instead of a sword, it's a human? Creepy, right? But Victor? He's so hyped about his progress, he doesn't even stop to think, wait, is this SUS? After 2 years of zero breaks and ignoring literally everyone, Victor's finally ready to drop his magnum opus, a fully operational human he built with his own hands. It's a stormy night, classic mad scientist vibes, and our boy's like, time to plug it in and see if it works. Spoiler, it works. Lightning strikes, and boom. The creature wakes up. But instead of being like, oh, sweet, I made life, Victor takes one look at his creation and freaks out. Picture this, the creature's this giant dude with patchy skin, weird proportions, and creepy yellow eyes. Honestly, he's giving major Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic energy, terrifying and uncanny. Victor? He's not about it. He's like, ew, this is cursed, and nopes out of the lab so fast it's like he hit the dodge roll button in panic. Dude straight up leaves his creature to fend for itself and just goes to sleep. Like, bro, what did you expect? But wait, it gets worse. The next morning, Victor wakes up, hoping the whole thing was a bad dream. Spoiler, it wasn't. The creature is alive and wandering around somewhere. Victor's so spooked, he has a full-on breakdown and spends days wandering the streets of Ingolstadt. He's avoiding his friends, avoiding school, avoiding reality, basically ghosting his entire life. Right when he's about to hit rock bottom, who shows up but Henry Clerval, his childhood bestie in ultimate wholesome vibe. Henry's like, yo, dude, why do you look like you've been stuck in Silent Hill for weeks? Victor, of course, doesn't spill the beans about his undead science project. Instead, he's like, yeah, I've been sick. Totally nothing weird going on here. Henry moves in to nurse him back to health, and things are starting to look a little brighter. But don't get too comfy. Victor's still haunted by what he's done. His creature's out there somewhere, and he has no idea where or what it's doing. Meanwhile, he's trying to act normal, going to lectures with Henry and pretending he didn't just commit the biggest scientific oopsie of all time. That's basically where things leave off. Victor's life is spiraling, his monster is MIA, and you can just feel that something bad is about to go down. Like, this is the part of the horror movie where you're yelling at the screen, bruh, fix this before it gets worse. But nah, Victor's just gonna keep spiraling because this story's only getting started. So yeah, that's Volume 1, Chapters 1 to 4 of Frankenstein. It's a mix of high-key brilliance, low-key bad decisions, and some straight-up hold-my-beer levels of ambition. Victor wanted to be a god, but now he's out here dealing with the fallout like he's stuck in the most cursed save file ever. Stay tuned, because this tale's got betrayal, heartbreak, and existential dread on the menu. And trust me, the creature? He's not just sitting around doing nothing. Things are about to get way more chaotic. Alright, let's dive back into the cursed life of Victor Frankenstein, Chapters 5 to 7. This part of the story? Phew, it's like a combo of The Walking Dead meets Attack on Titan, but with extra angst and zero problem-solving skills from our boy Victor. Strap in, it's about to get messy. So, remember how Victor straight up abandoned his homemade giant zombie dude? Yeah, that decision's about to bite him in the butt, hard. After bailing on his creature and catching a whole case of the nerves, Victor's trying to act like everything's fine. He's leaning on Henry Clerval, who's the ultimate emotional support bestie. Henry doesn't know what's up with Victor, but he's like, bro, you look like you're about to pass out. Let's get you outside for some air and reset that mental health bar. They hang out, go for walks, and Victor pretends the monster doesn't exist. But let's be real, Victor's not doing great. Every time he thinks about the creature, he spirals into a mini panic attack. It's giving main character with maxed out stress levels vibes, and he's not even trying to process what he did. Instead, he's all, if I ignore it, it'll disappear, right? Spoiler, wrong. Victor decides to check his mail, and boom, he gets a letter from Elizabeth. She's like, we miss you, bro. Also, sad news, your little bro William has been murdered. Come home ASAP. Murdered. Like, straight up clobbered. Victor is shattered. He packs his bags, and he's back to Geneva in a flash. But before he even gets home, he decides to take a moody detour through the mountains for some. And this, folks, is where things start to feel like a Bloodborne boss cutscene. While wandering in the middle of the night like a total emo loner, Victor spots something moving through the trees. It's the creature. Yes, the big guy he built with his own two hands is out here, running wild in the Swiss Alps like a terrifying NPC you don't want to aggro. Victor's like, oh crap, it's my monster, and immediately puts two and two together. He's convinced this creature is the one who murked William. Honestly? Fair assumption, because the timing's way too sus. Victor doesn't confront the creature, classic coward move, but he's seething with guilt. Instead of, telling anyone what he's done, he zips his lips and heads home. Back at the Frankenstein crib, the drama's already on level 10. The family's in pieces, and things are about to get worse. Justine, the family's super sweet and loyal servant, has been accused of William's murder. Why? Because someone found a locket on her that William used to carry. Super flimsy evidence, but people in Geneva are eating it up like it's gospel. Elizabeth is devastated. She's all, there's no way Justine did this. She's basically an angel. Let's defend her. Victor? He's just sitting there, sweating like he's in a Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney courtroom scene. He knows the real culprit is the creature, but does he say anything? Nope. He stays silent because he doesn't want to look like a crazy person spilling, hey, I made a giant monster and now it's committing murder. Classic Victor, keeping secrets instead of solving problems. Justine's trial rolls around, and it's not looking good. Victor, the man with actual evidence, is just sitting in the audience feeling guilty but doing nada. Elizabeth stands up and defends Justine with her whole heart, but the jury? They're not buying it. Justine gets convicted, and she's sentenced to death. Victor's guilt skyrockets. He's out here monologuing in his head like a JRPG protagonist after a catastrophic party wipe, but it's too little, too late. Justine is executed, and Victor's officially the king of bad decisions. Now, let's take stock of where Victor's at. His little brother's dead. His family's a wreck. An innocent woman got yeeted by the justice system, and Victor? He's too scared to admit he's the one who accidentally unleashed this nightmare. Instead of owning up, he's spiraling. He blames fate, destiny, the stars, literally everything except his own bad choices. So yeah, things are rough in the Frankenstein world right now. Victor's living that haunted by your own mistakes life, and the monster's out there, lurking, probably plotting something worse. This story's only getting darker, folks, because Victor's just starting to realize he messed with powers way beyond his control. And the creature? Oh, he's not done yet. Alright, let's jump into Volume 2 of Frankenstein, where Victor's nightmare snowballs into full-on drama, and the creature finally gets some screen time. Think of this section as the part in a video game where the boss you created shows up, not to fight, but to hit you with a sob story questline that you know is gonna get messy. Buckle up, because this ride's about to get emotional. So, Victor is in full sad boy mode after the whole William and Justine fiasco. His family's shattered, he's drowning in guilt, and to top it off, he's being haunted by the memory of the thing he brought to life. Instead of, telling anyone about it, he decides to hit the mountains for some solo brooding. And honestly? Big protagonist at their lowest point energy. Picture him trudging through the Alps like he's in a moody A24 film, feeling sorry for himself while the epic scenery does its thing. But wait, plot twist! As he's wandering around the icy peaks, guess who shows up? That's right, the creature. Victor spots this massive figure coming toward him, and he's like, oh no, it's him. My science project's back to haunt me. The creature isn't just lurking this time, though, he walks right up to Victor, like, we need to talk. And let me tell you, this conversation? It's juicy. First, Victor flips out, calling the creature a monster and blaming him for ruining everything. The creature, though, claps back like, bro, you made me this way. I didn't ask to exist. He goes full philosopher mode, explaining how he didn't start out bad, but the world treated him like trash, so what did Victor expect? It's like a super dramatic therapy session where the patient is 7 feet tall and stitched together from corpse parts. Now, here's the kicker, the creature isn't just here to roast Victor. He's got a story to tell. He's like, let me fill you in on what I've been up to while you were busy ghosting me. Turns out, after Victor bailed, the creature wandered around, trying to figure out life. At first, he was a total noob, didn't even know how to talk or what food was. He was just stumbling through the woods like a Skyrim NPC with no quest markers. But then, he finds a little shack near a farm and decides to hang out in the shadows, watching this family that lives there. Cue the ultimate outsider looking in montage. The creature spends months secretly observing the DeLacys, a super wholesome but down on their luck family. There's Felix, the brooding son, Agatha, the kind sister, and their blind dad, who's basically a walking wise old man trope. The creature's fascinated by them. He watches how they interact, learns to speak by listening to them, and even picks up reading from books they leave lying around. It's like he's doing Duolingo but with extra drama. At first, he's vibing with this setup. The DeLacys are struggling, so the creature tries to help them out without being seen. He chops wood for them, clears snow, and basically becomes their guardian angel. But deep down, he's lonely AF. Watching them be a family makes him realize how alone he is. It's like he's playing a single-player game while everyone else is on multiplayer. Things heat up when Felix's crush, Saifi, shows up. Saifi's this Turkish woman who's learning French, and through her lessons, the creature gets a full-on crash course in history, culture, and human nature. He's getting smarter, but he's also realizing how much he doesn't belong. Every time he looks at his reflection, he's like, oh, right, I'm terrifying. It's rough. Finally, the creature decides he's ready to introduce himself to the DeLacys. His plan? Start with the blind dad, because he won't freak out about the whole stitched-together monster thing. And at first, it works. The dad is super chill and even seems to like the creature. But then Felix, Agatha, and Saifi walk in, and it's game over. They see him, panic hard, and Felix straight up attacks him. The creature runs away, heartbroken. It's like getting kicked from the party you weren't even invited to. After that, the creature's whole vibe shifts. He's hurt, lonely, and furious at the world, and especially at Victor for bringing him into it. He's like, you made me, but you didn't stick around to teach me how to deal with this mess. That's on you. He heads back to Victor's hometown, and when he runs into William, he sees an opportunity to make Victor suffer. Yup, he confesses to strangling the kid. And the whole thing with Justine? He planted the locket on her to seal the deal. This dude is not playing anymore. The creature wraps up his story with a big demand, make me a girlfriend. He's like, look, I didn't ask to be alone, and if the world's gonna treat me like a monster, at least give me someone who won't hate me on sight. Victor? He's horrified, but the creature is like, I'll leave humanity alone and live in the wilderness if you do this one thing. If not, I'll ruin your life even more. Victor reluctantly agrees, but you can tell he's not feeling it. He's stuck between his guilt and his fear, and it's a total lose-lose situation. The creature's plea is haunting, though you can't help but feel bad for him even though he's already crossed some serious lines. And with that, the stage is set for the next level of this cursed drama. So yeah, Volume 2 is where things really pop off. The creature isn't just a mindless monster, he's got feelings, brains, and a whole lot of pent-up rage. Victor, meanwhile, is realizing that his actions have consequences, big ones. It's a mix of tragedy, horror, and some heavy moral questions, all wrapped up in a chaotic, emotional mess. Alright, let's pick up where we left off. Victor Frankenstein is in a deal with the devil scenario where the devil happens to be a giant monster he made in his dorm room. The creature, after telling his whole tragic backstory, was basically like, yo, you owe me a girlfriend. Make her, or I'll keep wrecking your life. And Victor, being the walking red flag he is, was like, fine, I'll do it, just chill. Spoiler, no one's chilling. Victor heads back to Geneva, trying to act normal, but deep down, he's spiraling harder than a League of Legends team after a bad play. The creature's request is messing with his head. Like, how do you even start building Bride of Frankenstein 2.0? What's the vibe? Should she have matching scars, or is that too extra? Victor can't decide, but one thing's clear, he's dreading the whole thing. Meanwhile, his fam is out here trying to lift his spirits. His dad's like, hey, maybe you should marry Elizabeth now? It'll cheer you up. And Victor, the king of awkward excuses, is like, yeah, about that. I'm totally into the idea, but I've got this super important thing I need to do first. Red flags everywhere, but Elizabeth is too sweet and too in love to notice. Victor decides to take a little solo trip to England to clear his head, read, avoid his problems. Henry Clevel tags along, which is good because Victor's vibes are straight up rancid at this point. Clevel's the kind of guy who would be perfect in a buddy cop movie, fun, optimistic, and just happy to be alive. The two travel through Europe, soaking in the scenery. Henry's like, wow, nature's amazing. Let's vibe with the universe, while Victor's in the background thinking, man, I really don't want to play Dr. Frankenstein 2, Electric Boogaloo. Eventually, they reach Scotland, which is where Victor plans to set up his creepy science lab. But he's not in a cozy castle or anything, he rents a tiny, crusty shack on a remote island. Picture the most depressing Animal Crossing starter home you can think of, except instead of decorating with cute furniture, Victor's filling it with random body parts. It's gross, it's sketchy, and it's totally giving mad scientist speedrun energy. Victor starts building the creature's girlfriend, but the whole time, his brain is doing circles. He's not just procrastinating, he's questioning everything. Like, what if the new creature hates the first one? What if they become a power couple of destruction and wipe out humanity? What if she's worse than the first monster? Victor's anxiety meter is maxed out, and it's clear he has zero faith in his own abilities. Not exactly a glowing endorsement for Team Frankenstein. One night, Victor finally reaches his breaking point. He's working on the female creature, and suddenly, he just loses it. He looks at her half-finished body on the table and is like, nope. This is a bad idea. I'm out. And then, brace yourself for this, he destroys the creature's would-be girlfriend right there in the lab, tears her apart like a rage-quitting gamer tossing their controller. Big mistake. Guess who's been watching this whole meltdown? Yup, the original creature. He pops up at the window like, yo, what the actual heck? And when he sees Victor destroy his one shot at companionship, he's furious. He storms in and hits Victor with a verbal ultimate move, fine. You wanna ruin my happiness? I'll ruin yours. Mark my words, I'll be with you on your wedding night. It's straight up final boss warning energy. Victor's terrified, but instead of apologizing or negotiating, he doubles down, yelling right back at the creature. The monster dips, leaving Victor to clean up his own mess, literally. He tosses the remains of the almost girlfriend into the sea, which feels like the worst cover-up plan ever. Then he tries to sail back to the mainland, but the weather goes full Elden Ring boss fight. There's wind, waves, and a level of chaos that screams nature is mad at you too, bro. Victor eventually washes up on some random beach, exhausted and soaked. But wait, it gets worse. The locals are acting super sus, and he's like, what's their deal? Turns out, someone was murdered nearby, and they think Victor did it. Because of course. This dude can't catch a break. They drag him to a magistrate, and Victor's thinking, there's no way they'll pin this on me. I didn't even see the crime scene. Then they show him the body. Plot twist, it's Henry Clerval. Cue Victor's complete mental breakdown. Seeing his best friend dead is the final straw. He knows this is the creature's doing, and the guilt just crushes him. The locals aren't buying his innocence, though. They're like, guy with corpse building experience shows up right after a murder? Suspicious. So they throw him in jail. While locked up, Victor spirals even harder. He's sick, both physically and mentally, and starts having hallucinations. Eventually, his dad comes to bail him out and bring him home. But Victor? He's not the same. He's a broken shell of a guy, haunted by every mistake he's ever made. The creature's threat to crash his wedding is hanging over him like a storm cloud, and Victor knows it's only a matter of time before everything falls apart. So, to recap, Victor agreed to make the creature a girlfriend, then freaked out and smashed her to pieces. The creature, understandably ticked off, vowed revenge and started killing people close to Victor. Clerval's dead, Victor's barely holding it together, and now he's heading home to Geneva, knowing full well that the worst is still coming. It's a slow-motion train wreck, and you can't look away. Volume 2 ends with Victor realizing he's officially lost control of the situation. Every bad choice he's made is snowballing, and the creature's revenge plan is just getting started. It's dark, it's tragic, and honestly, it's a level of chaos that makes you want to scream, dude, just tell someone the truth already. But hey, that's Victor for you. Stay tuned, because the drama's about to hit next level intensity. Alright, let's dive into Volume 3 of Frankenstein, where everything goes off the rails in the messiest, most chaotic way possible. This is the part where Victor's life becomes one giant horror movie, except he's the guy who keeps making dumb decisions while the monster levels up like it's some twisted RPG. You ready for this roller coaster? Let's go. Victor's finally back in Geneva after all the drama in Scotland and the death of Henry Clerval. You'd think he'd be trying to chill, but nah, our boy is absolutely fried. He knows the creature is out there, lurking, plotting, and worst of all, the guy made it personal. Remember when the creature said he'd be there on Victor's wedding night? Yeah, Victor's got that warning playing on repeat in his brain, like a cursed TikTok audio. So what does he do? Does he tell Elizabeth the truth about the homicidal monster with a vendetta? Of course not. Instead, he decides to go full-on lone wolf, thinking he can handle it solo. Classic Victor. The guy has no party management skills. He's basically that one stubborn gamer who refuses to use potions because they're saving them for later, except later never comes. Victor agrees to marry Elizabeth because, why not? It's not like he has a monster breathing down his neck or anything. His dad is hyped because he thinks the wedding will fix everything, but Elizabeth? She's starting to pick up on Victor's weird vibes. She's like, hey, are you good? You've been acting super sus lately. And Victor, the king of emotional unavailability, is like, oh yeah, totally fine. Definitely not thinking about a giant revenge monster at all. Anyway, the wedding happens, and for a hot second, it's actually kind of sweet. Elizabeth is glowing, Victor's trying to act normal, and the whole thing feels like one of those peaceful moments in an action game right before the boss fight. But Victor can't relax. He's pacing, sweating, and looking over his shoulder like the creature is about to pop out of the wedding cake. Spoiler, the creature has a way darker plan. The happy couple heads to their honeymoon spot, a remote inn by a lake. It's quiet, romantic, and absolutely the worst place to be if you're expecting a monster attack. Victor's like, okay, this is it. I'm ready for him to come at me. He's got his weapons, his nerves are shot, and he's practically shaking with anticipation. The dude is hyped for a showdown. But then, the creature goes full 4D chess mode. Instead of attacking Victor, the creature targets Elizabeth. Yep. While Victor is off pacing like a stressed-out NPC, the monster slips into their room and murders Elizabeth. By the time Victor realizes what's happened, it's too late. He finds her lifeless body, and honestly, it's one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the whole story. Victor's heartbreak is real, but let's be honest, he kind of set himself up for this. At this point, Victor's life is officially in shambles. His brother's dead. His best friend is dead. His wife is dead. And now, his dad dies from grief, leaving Victor completely alone. It's like a cursed game of dominoes, and the creature is the one knocking them all down. Victor swears revenge, though, because of course he does. He's like, alright, you've pushed me too far. It's on. Cue the final act, Victor goes full Witcher mode and starts hunting the creature across Europe. We're talking snowy mountains, desolate wastelands, and an endless, miserable trek that feels like a survival game with no save points. The creature, being the absolute troll he is, keeps leaving taunting clues for Victor, footprints, messages, and other signs that scream you'll never catch me, loser. It's like the monster has unlocked the psychological warfare skill tree, and he's maxed it out. Victor is burning with rage, but let's be real, this dude is falling apart. He's starving, exhausted, and straight up losing it. The creature, on the other hand, is thriving in this icy wasteland. He's adapted to the cold like he's got some kind of Arctic DLC. The power imbalance is ridiculous. Eventually, Victor ends up in the Arctic, chasing the creature across a frozen sea. Picture it, endless ice, howling winds, and Victor stumbling along like he's in a Dark Souls game. He's completely out of his depth, but his obsession is the only thing keeping him going. The creature stays just out of reach, leading Victor deeper into the icy void. It's the ultimate game of cat and mouse, except the cat is half dead, and the mouse is 7 feet tall and fueled by revenge. And then, just when it seems like Victor might collapse from sheer exhaustion, he runs into a random ship. Yep, the one we started with. Remember Walton? The guy writing all this down in his letters? Victor hops aboard Walton's ship, which is stuck in the Arctic ice, because of course it is. Walton's crew is like, who is this half-dead man, and why is he rambling about monsters? Victor spills his whole tragic backstory to Walton, giving us the frame narrative we've been in this whole time. He's like, learn from my mistakes, dude. Don't let ambition turn you into a wreck like me. But even as he's saying this, you can tell he's still obsessed with taking the creature down. The man's got one goal left, and he's clinging to it with the last scraps of his strength. The crew starts getting antsy because they're stuck in ice and don't want to die out here, but Walton's like, wait, this is the most interesting thing that's ever happened to me. Let's stay a little longer. Eventually, though, they convince him to turn the ship around. Victor's crushed because it means he'll never get to finish his revenge quest, but honestly, the guy probably wouldn't have survived much longer anyway. Not long after, Victor dies. Yup, the protagonist of this whole mess is gone, leaving Walton to clean up the narrative. But wait, the creature isn't done. He shows up on the ship to pay his respects, or maybe gloat, it's hard to tell. This scene is wild because the creature is genuinely sad about Victor's death. He's like, I never wanted it to go this far. I just wanted you to understand my pain. And for a moment, you almost feel bad for him. Almost. The creature tells Walton he's done with this whole revenge arc and plans to yeet himself into the Arctic to die. It's a super dramatic exit, and then, poof, he's gone. And that's it. The story ends with Walton sailing back home, carrying Victor's tragic tale and probably questioning all his life choices. So, what's the moral of the story? Don't play God, don't abandon your responsibilities, and maybe don't create life unless you've got a solid plan for dealing with the consequences. Victor's ambition destroyed everything he cared about, and the creature's loneliness and anger turned him into a literal nightmare. It's a messy, tragic, and utterly haunting story, but hey, that's why it's a classic. Alright, let's dive into the final chapters of Frankenstein, where things go full-on chaos mode, and the story wraps up like a dramatic finale of your favorite anime. We've got revenge, despair, and a frozen wasteland showdown that feels ripped straight out of a survival game. Buckle up, because this ride is icy and intense. When we left off, Victor Frankenstein was on his manic revenge tour, chasing his 7-foot-tall monster creation through the Arctic like he's some kind of underleveled bounty hunter. His entire energy at this point is, you ruined my life, now I'm ruining yours, but let's be real, Victor is so outmatched it's not even funny. The creature is out here sprinting across glaciers and thriving in sub-zero temperatures, while Victor is barely hanging on like a bad NPC sidekick. Victor's spiral into obsession has reached final boss energy. He's following every clue the creature leaves behind, which, let's be honest, is basically the monster's way of flexing. Like, the dude is leaving footprints, destroyed supplies, and taunting notes, just to make sure Victor knows he's always a step behind. It's giving major Death Note vibes, this is psychological warfare, and Victor's not exactly light on his feet, literally or figuratively. But Victor doesn't care about logic anymore. He's fueled by nothing but rage and spite, running on the kind of determination you only see in anime protagonists and hardcore speedrunners. Except unlike them, he has no actual skill set for this. The guy can build life from scratch, but can't figure out how to survive in the Arctic. Peak Victor. So, picture this, Victor's stumbling through the snow, half dead, chasing after the superhuman revenge machine. He's barely eating, barely sleeping, and his health bar is flashing red. It's like a brutal endurance round in Dark Souls, where you're just one frostbite debuff away from collapsing. But still, he pushes forward, convinced that if he can just catch the creature, it'll all be worth it. Spoiler, it won't. Then, one day, Victor spots the creature in the distance. Finally, the moment he's been waiting for. But before he can even think about confrontation, the ice he's traveling on starts breaking apart. Yup, nature itself decides to troll Victor one last time. The ice floe he's on drifts away, leaving him stranded in the middle of nowhere with zero resources and a death timer ticking down. At this point, you're just waiting for the game over screen. But plot twist, Victor gets picked up by Walton's ship. Remember Walton? The guy writing all the letters? Yeah, he and his crew find Victor floating on a chunk of ice, looking like he just rage quit life. They drag him aboard, and Victor immediately starts ranting about his tragic life story and the creature. Walton's like, dang, this is wild. Tell me more. Victor spills everything, holding nothing back, his ambitions, his mistakes, his endless quest for revenge. It's all there, raw and unfiltered. Now, Walton's crew is already on edge because they're stuck in Arctic ice and don't want to freeze to death. Hearing Victor's story only makes things worse. They're like, maybe we should turn back? This whole cursed vibes energy isn't it? Walton, though? He's still kind of buying into the whole glory of discovery thing. Victor's basically his toxic role model now, and he's not ready to give up just yet. But Victor himself? Oh, he's done. Stick a fork in him, he's cooked. His body is shutting down, and his obsession has burned out all his life force. He's lying there, fading, still rambling about how much he hates the creature. His final words to Walton are basically, bro, learn from my LS, don't follow in my footsteps, but also, if you get the chance, kill the creature for me. The duality of man. And then, Victor dies. Yep, that's it for our boy Frankenstein. The man who wanted to conquer life and death ends up consumed by his own creation. It's poetic in a way, but also super tragic. Like, dude, if you'd just owned up to your mistakes earlier, maybe half the people in your life wouldn't be dead. But wait, the creature isn't done. He shows up on Walton's ship like a ghost from Victor's past, looming over his creator's lifeless body. Walton's crew is probably freaking out because they're seeing a literal monster, but the creature doesn't even care about them. He's focused entirely on Victor. And here's the kicker, the creature actually feels bad. Like, seriously bad. He's crying over Victor's body, saying stuff like, I never wanted this. I just wanted someone to understand me. It's a total emotional 180. All that rage and destruction? It came from a place of loneliness and rejection. The creature wanted love, acceptance, and a connection, and when he didn't get it, he lashed out in the worst way possible. Now, with Victor gone, he realizes that revenge didn't fix anything. It just made him even emptier. The creature tells Walton he's done with life. He's tired of being miserable, tired of the hatred, and tired of existing in a world that never wanted him. He plans to build himself a funeral pyre in the middle of the icy wasteland and burn away into nothingness. It's the ultimate dramatic exit, and honestly, kind of iconic. He disappears into the Arctic, leaving Walton and the crew to wonder what the heck they just witnessed. And that's how it ends. Victor's gone, the creature's fate is left to the icy void, and Walton's sailing back home with a story that's going to haunt him forever. The whole thing is a bleak reminder that ambition, unchecked, can destroy you, and that rejection and loneliness can turn even the most innocent soul into something monstrous. So, what's the takeaway? Maybe it's that playing God isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe it's that empathy could have saved everyone a lot of pain. Or maybe it's just, don't build creepy creatures in your dorm room and then ghost them. Either way, Frankenstein ends with everyone losing, but it's one heck of a story.